Today, we're going to dive into the mind of philosopher and investor Naval Ravikant. And our goal isn't just to understand his ideas on things like happiness and anxiety. No, we're actually going to build a mental toolkit from them, one you can start using pretty much the second this is over.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to challenge what happiness even means. Then, we'll get into why so much of our suffering is, believe it or not, a choice. From there, we'll talk about building an unshakable reputation with the most important person, yourself. And finally, we'll break down how to decode and dismantle stress and anxiety for good.
So, let's start at square one. Most of us, right, we think of happiness as this destination, something we have to achieve or buy or earn. But what if Naval is right? What if that very chase is the thing that's keeping us from it?
Okay, before I show you Naval's take, just pause for a second. If someone asked you to define happiness in one sentence, what would you say? It's kind of wild, isn't it? We chase it our whole lives, but it's so hard to pin down.
And this is where Naval completely flips the script. See, happiness isn't something you add to your life, like joy or pleasure. He says it's our default state. It's the piece that's left over when you finally get rid of that nagging feeling that something is missing.
And this, right here, this is the machine that keeps us unhappy. It's the desire cycle. You can think of it like a hamster wheel for your mind. We feel a little incomplete, so we pick a new desire and start running. We suffer and struggle to get it, and then we finally do. And for a brief moment, it's great. But then the boredom comes back, and the wheel just resets. We start running all over again.
That constant cycle of desire and letdown, well, that's what creates suffering. But here's the next big idea. That suffering, it's not mandatory. We can actually learn to separate real physical pain from the mental anguish that we create ourselves.
This distinction is absolutely critical. Think of it this way. Getting caught in a downpour, that's a physical event. It's discomfort, maybe even a little pain if it's cold. But the suffering, that's the story you tell yourself. Ugh, this always happens to me. My whole day is ruined now. The rain is real. The story you tell yourself about the rain is a choice.
And this quote just nails the point, doesn't it? You hear this all the time from super successful people. They realize that even on their path to achieving amazing things, all the stress and suffering they put themselves through, it was totally unnecessary. Looking back, they see the struggle wasn't required, it was just a choice they made, moment to moment.
And this is where we can really start to take our power back. You know, an event is just an event. It's neutral. It only turns into a problem when our mind slaps a negative story on top of it. The second you become aware that you have this little storyteller in your head, you can choose not to write a story that makes you suffer.
So if happiness is our natural state and a lot of suffering is just a choice, what builds the foundation to actually stay in that peaceful place? Well, it's not about ego or thinking you're the best. According to Naval, it all comes down to building a rock-solid reputation with yourself. And this is a really powerful statement. Naval thinks this is literally the worst place to be, because without self-esteem, you're basically playing life on the hardest possible difficulty setting. You can't ask for a raise, or build a healthy relationship, or face any challenge if you're also fighting a war inside your own head.
Forget what anyone else thinks about you for a second. Naval redefines self-esteem as the reputation you have with yourself. You're your own constant observer. You're there 24/7. You see every shortcut you take, every promise you break to yourself. That's the reputation that really matters, and it's the one you can never, ever fake.
So how do you build up this internal reputation? Well, Naval gives us two really clear paths. First, figure out what your personal values are, and then live by them, no exceptions. Second, show your love for something or someone through real action, through sacrifice. These are the things that prove your character to yourself.
Okay, we've got our goal, a peaceful default state. Now let's talk about the two biggest things that rob us of that peace: stress and anxiety. By giving them really precise definitions, we can go from being victims of these feelings to being detectives who can actually solve them.
Naval's definitions here are like a surgeon's scalpel. Stress, he says, is specific. It's the tension of wanting two opposite things at the same time. You know, I want to get in shape, but I also really want to eat this entire pizza. That pull? That's stress. Anxiety? That's different. It's that vague, buzzing background dread that comes from having 100 of those little unresolved stresses all piled up.
He has this great analogy for it. Think of anxiety as just the tip of an iceberg. That uneasy feeling you have is just the part you can see sticking out of the water. But underneath the surface, there's this massive, hidden block of all the unresolved conflicts and decisions you've been pushing away.
So you can't fix anxiety by just focusing on the feeling. That's like trying to melt the tip of the iceberg with the hairdryer. You have to dive underwater and deal with the real problem. And that means you have to systematically identify each conflict, each unresolved issue, whether that's by journaling, meditating, or talking it out. And then you have to make a decision. You get rid of the anxiety by resolving the problems underneath.
4,000. That's it. If you're lucky enough to live to be about 80, that is roughly how many weeks you have in your entire life. When you see it as a number like that, not just some abstract idea of time, it's kind of a shock, isn't it? It really forces you to ask a tough question. Why would I waste even one of these precious weeks on suffering I'm creating myself?
And this leads us to maybe Naval's most important redefinition of all. Wasted time isn't about being unproductive. It's about being absent. If you are physically sitting here, but your mind is lost in regrets about yesterday or filled with anxiety about tomorrow, you are not actually here. You're not present. And that, he says, is the only real way to waste your time.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. It's a question not just to think about for a minute, but to actually live with. It's a challenge to bring your full attention back to the only thing you ever really have, this moment, right now.